Hey, welcome back to the Kingdom Bringer podcast. We have a special guest today. I'm excited about it.
Woo.
I want to get this stuff over with, though, so no woos yet. Scott, big shout out to Building Solutions, big supporter of ours. You can check them out online at bldgsolutions.net. For all your building and construction needs, get a hold of Brian and the gang at Building Solutions. Also, we still need you guys to get on iTunes, rate, review, subscribe to the podcast, share it with your friends, get this out there. We want to be number one by next week. That's our goal. That's my goal. Scott does not care about that one bit. Get on Spotify. You can follow us on Spotify. Overcast app is an app that our guest actually introduced me to, and it's really clean and really good, and I like it a lot. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel and Facebook at KB Podcast. We want to have some interaction with you guys too, so continue to reach out to us at thekingdombringers@gmail.com. Ask us any questions. Give us your comments. We want to hear back from you guys. That is the business. We're ready to roll. Scott Tilley, how was your weekend so far, man?
It's good, man. Getting ready for the revival. It's been kind of crazy, but prayer meetings, and just getting in the comfort of knowing those who are going to be there. It's going to be awesome. Excited for that. Excited for Josh. Excited for Ryan and Jeff, and just can't wait to see what the Holy Spirit does, man. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah, it's going to be good. I feel like there's been a build up to this moment, and it's finally here. We were supposed to have some rainstorms come in, but it looks like they've cleared off for some reason.
Amen. Power prayer.
I don't know what that's all about. But our guest today, we talked about it last week. We're excited. It is Josh Littlejohn, one of the original founding pastors of the Gathering here in Dodge City, currently the Connections pastor at Upper Room in Dallas. Joshua, how are you, sir?
I'm great. I'm so pumped to be here. I've been looking forward to this for a while. You're doing an awesome job.
You look really relaxed.
He's comfy.
Good. I feel great.
You took the headphones off.
Yeah, I don't need them. Need them.
I'll tell you what, this morning, KB Studios, a.k.a. my basement, got a whole lot better looking this morning. Josh Littlejohn came in rocking the hair.
Yeah.
And that's why he can't have the headset on.
Yep. A lot of product and a lot of sun. So
a lot of sun.
Yeah.
You've kind of had a busy couple weeks, I've noticed, on your social media. You've been taking some trips and not getting a whole lot of work done. What's going on with that?
Come on. Wow. Yeah. It's been a busy summer. I had the opportunity to go to Croatia first off with the youth group at our church, and they asked me to be one of the adults on the trip, and so I got to go act like an adult for a couple of weeks, and it was amazing. As an adult, I've never been overseas. My parents were missionaries, and but I don't remember any of it really, especially the overseas part in Africa.
So you have been over, or you haven't been over?
Have not since,
okay. But they were, though?
They were. I was born in South Africa, and they were missionaries. And
so you have been overseas.
But not as my own choice, and not as an adult, and especially not as like just in my own walk with the Lord, like it's my own personal walk with the Lord, which really I think probably didn't even start until really not that long ago, really 6-7 years ago, I would say, where just the eyes been open. And even though I've been a churchgoer my whole life, but just your own, there's a difference between that and just your own personal walk and journey of walking with Him and listening to Him, and not only just doing what He wants, but doing what is going to be awesome for you, because that's what He wants to do too. So
I never took you as a overseas missions kind of guy. So
no, I'm not.
I was actually really excited when I heard you were going, because I think that's evidence of some change in your life for sure. Because that's not something you would have done. I don't think.
But the Lord knew what He was doing, because Croatia was my kind of mission trip.
Was it? Why?
Because it's an amazing country. It's beautiful.
You had some cool pictures.
Totally developed. Great restaurants. Great.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
On the coast. It's nice places to stay, and I think it was a good intro for me.
Yeah.
He knew exactly what I needed. My Nacy, she totally feels called to Africa. She's been to Mozambique with Heidi Baker.
Not you.
And she's like, I want us all to go over there. And I'm just like, I have no desire.
I'll go back to Croatia.
I'm just
He's
being
like, I already
honest.
been there when I was little.
Just
When I was a baby, I'm done.
I already served over there.
I'll go serve in Paris.
That's super cool though, because last week we talked about the desires of the heart, and missions were kind of a part of that. And then this week,
Yeah.
God literally put that desire in your heart, whether you knew it was Croatia or not. Like that's where you ended
Yeah.
up. And the pictures spoke for themselves. The smile on your face, the atmosphere, like you said, the food, the cuisine, all the just the area, the atmosphere, the ocean, the mountains. That was pretty cool to see your childlike faith come out in those pictures.
It was amazing, and I really need to make sure we talk about what we did over there and what the Lord's doing. Of course, it was an amazing, like restaurants and food and sights and thus. But
You got to do some worship too, yeah?
we did. So what kind of the upper room is known for, and what since the beginning is these live prayer and worship sets that they've been doing for 8 years, and we did that over there every night for 10 days. Like we toured the country for the first 5 days and did in different house of prayer, different church, did a prayer and worship set, and then in the last 5 days of the trip we did it in one main church, and they had like a revival style every night type meeting, and it was amazing. And then the other thing, and it was amazing for a lot of things, because the churches over there, it's just like they're small little fires over everywhere, and we got to go stoke those flames. And it's just funny. It's just amazing how just your presence and passion and the Spirit of the Lord, like it stirs people up, and things have really been changed. I've talked to the lady since we left. And then the other thing for me personally was I went with the youth group, and the youth group, and I'm really not involved that much with the youth group at all at our church, but the youth leader's name's Aaron Smith. He's amazing, and he asked me to come. He's like, we really were praying, and we felt like we were supposed to ask you to come on this trip with us.
Cool.
And I was like, okay. I still wanted to say no,
Yeah.
because it's still 12 days away. I have 4 little kids at home, and but going with them, man, those kids, which they were all like juniors and seniors, they reconnected me to like energy. They reconnected me to go doing fun things just for fun things' sake. They reconnected me to, because like when you have little ones, you can kind of become homebodies, and you're just like, oh, okay, let's just survive and let's get these kids in bed. But man, these teenagers, I was so surprised at how much I connected with these teenagers. It was awesome for my heart.
What was it about Croatia? Like, why did they pick Croatia for? Do you know?
There's a connection. We have a couple. First of all, Upper Room supports a couple missionaries over there already.
Is that where Mufa's from?
Mufa's from there.
Okay.
Veronica's from there, but they're actually not there. But there's also Jerry and Susanna Lowe who have a little house of prayer over there.
Okay.
So that was the connection.
What's the is there like a, I don't know anything about Croatia at all.
Mm-hmm.
What's the percentage? I don't
It's
think there's a percentage about
I think it's
Christianity and stuff.
Excuse me. It's 90. I think it's 90%, 95, 99% Catholic.
Okay.
And it's I think it's like Catholic as like you just get designated Catholic when you're born, because we're Croatian and we're
Gotcha.
Catholic, and there's churches everywhere. But at these meetings, at these prayer and worship nights, because Upper Room sort of has this global YouTube sort of presence with some of these songs they've been releasing, like there was young people that knew that Upper Room was coming, even though it wasn't our like main team or anything like that. So they came out, and I met so many young, like 25-year-old around that age, charismatic Catholics.
That's awesome.
Wow.
Who speak in tongues, believe in healing, listen to all the same worship we all listen to Bill Johnson podcast, know all the guys. In fact, I got a really weird compliment. One of the girls from Hungary said, "You look like you could be Bill Johnson's best friend." I don't know why. It's some of the way I look or something. Yeah. But I said, I look like I could be his best. I don't know. I took it as a compliment.
Yeah.
You should have said, I am.
Yeah. But what was awesome. Cool is that they were just, and so they have all that, but, they go to mass, and, they have a different sort of view of Mary than we have. And, but their hunger for worship and their hunger for the gifts of the Spirit actually brought them and Protestants in the same room around the presence of God. And it was just very awesome for me to see the gifts of the Spirit unite instead of divide.
Wow.
And broke down the walls of Catholicism, because these kids, they're like 25, they don't care. They just see where there's life, and they're going to go where the life is. They're going to go where the fruit is. They're going to go where the life is. And so that was just two major highlights of that trip. It was awesome.
Wow.
That's cool. Yeah, I was just thinking our last meeting too. I just came off not Croatia, but a time 5 days with the youth, 400 or so high school kids, and I like how you said you could kind of reconnect with just the game side of it, and that for me was recharging too, man, because you can get that way. You have not a brand new baby, but you have a pretty new
9-month-old,
and your life can kind of get into that aspect of, yeah, we are homebodies now. This is just what we have to do. But to reconnect and recharge through the next generation too, man, that's what's cool. These are the kids that are going to be taking the kingdom to the, to the next level, and you got to experience that in a tangible way.
Yeah,
I saw in one of your videos, the rooms weren't really huge, but the worship in those home meetings was a fire, dude.
Yeah.
You could tell the presence of God was in that room.
Yeah, you're so right. These weren't big places. Like, these were literally small groups of believers all over the country. And so it was really neat. I mean, it was really unsung. It wasn't really like it wasn't this big events or anything like that. But the kids, it was just cool. Like, we're walking down, and we're going to, I can't remember where we're going, but we're walking down on this along the coast, but the water is right there, and one of the kids is like, dare me to jump in? And they're like, yeah, go for it. Like, we all have full clothes on. Yeah. Like, and it's like, man, he's like, oh.
That's the moment you backed away from the water?
He's like, I'll do it. I mean, this is like, yeah, exactly. But he's like, I'll do it. And it was just like, he went for it, and it was fun. And it was just like, you don't realize you've been in this mindset. No, look how inconvenient that would be. Look at, what I mean? You get this adult.
I'm not carrying extra underwear.
Yeah. It was just like this, I don't know. Their passion for life just really, it really got to me, and I wasn't expecting that.
That's
awesome.
That's kind of weird, because, like, to be straight up honest, man, I came from like the youth ministry background in ministry and stuff, and I was just always real passionate about youth ministry.
You're not anymore, are you?
Dude, I don't know. I honestly don't know right now if I could do that. Go on a trip with youth. And I don't know what it was that shifted, but I feel like I'm not making justification for it at all, but I feel like it's my faith grew up a little bit. So in a good way, like, I matured, but I really wish that I had a heart for the next generation like that, because I don't. And I'm just being straight up honest.
Yeah.
Like, it's really hard for me to, I don't know. I'm passionate about adult Christians in church,
It's good.
But I value that, and I kind of.
Well, I don't know if I'm passionate about youth, but these youth in particular, and there was only like 7 of them.
What age?
And they were all just graduated, or they were going to be seniors. Okay. And so this is my favorite age. When I used to teach school and coach, and it, like, those are the kids I got to work with. I got to work with juniors. I love the older ones. And then just these in specific, they were invited by the youth pastor, so it wasn't like, hey, let's just any youth that wants to come. So he invited, like, people he saw potential and hunger and fire. Yeah. And these kids it was such a blessing for me as a parent who has an 11-year-old in our church. These kids, the upper rooms existed for 8 years, and almost all these kids had been raised in the environment that my child. And these kids, like, they didn't. I complained more than them. Yeah. On this trip.
I don't believe it.
I'm like, just kidding. They had their attitudes, their engagement, their ministering to people during our things. They weren't wallflowers. They weren't on their phones. They were, and so I just want to qualify that with, like, the kid that is like doesn't want to really be there. I don't have a heart to try to break through. I mean, I get frustrated with that stuff, but these specific kids just blessed me like amazing, and so I think it was really life changing for me.
That's awesome.
And so now I told the youth pastor, I told Aaron, I said, man, just a couple days ago, I said, man, that just blessed me so much. If you ever want me to help, even just if it's one kid that's like a senior and he could use like a mentor, or he could use somebody to like take him out to lunch, just let me know. And like,
yeah, that's great.
And that's not like the old me. Like,
Yeah.
So I know something's
Do you
different.
feel like you kind of established that on this trip? Like, was there some kids in particular?
There's
that
one
you kinda-
kid, Jared. I'm gonna send you this link so I can tell you give you a shout out. But Jared, and I love Jared because he's 18 and he's really honest. He's like, man, I'm excited. I'm loving this trip. During the trip, we like debrief, and he's like, I'm loving it, but I'm just scared because I go to public school and I hang out. Like my kids like to get high, and I mean my friends like, and I just know as soon as I get home they're gonna be blowing me up saying, hey, let's go hang out, and I love that honesty. I love that because that was my life.
Yeah.
I had that life, but he's gotten back, and instead of going back to his old patterns and his old friends, he's hung out with our youth pastor and his wife almost every night. He's at the church almost every day doing stuff, and his life is completely different. And so I've really connected. I've just been really impressed with him, and it's just, like the Lord does a work in our heart, but it's also like the choices you make too, especially when you're in. When you've had those kind of influences, you know,
it's like a heavenly impact. I noticed that's funny. You sparked some interest in me when you said about him going back and changing who he hung out with. One of the kids during our trip 2 weeks ago, like the last night of worship, we were laying there, lights out 11:45 or whatever it was, and he's like, how am I supposed to go back to my old church and worship the way out of the hymn after experiencing this? So it was flipped for me. And I don't know if I gave him the right answer, but I was like, dude, take what you learned here and implement it in the church that you're at now. You don't have to fold up shop and go somewhere else just because the worship was different. And it was really cool to see. It was really cool. Yeah, you can. It was cool to see this kid's wheels turning. Like he got a touch from the Holy Spirit. And he was like, this is a tangible presence of God.
At least he recognized that, yeah.
And his question, I told him that question blessed me probably more than anything that happened that week, was his notability that the Father was working and that he was tangible in that room of worship.
Yeah.
That was cool for me, man.
See, that's crazy for me because I feel like a lot of people experience that good new stuff, and then frustration comes after that because they do. They go back to, what they think is their new norm or whatever. I think that's sad. And I don't know if that's like the enemy's way of like trying to damper that, or if it makes me wonder anyway what we are to do in that situation, because I'm not against,
there's not a great answer for that.
There's not. I'm not. It's hard when you're talking to a kid because
you don't want to tell a kid, hey, I'll come get you. I'll come get you one Sunday. You can come to our service. Just tell your parents you're not going to go in the morning.
Exactly.
Like you can't do that.
Probably a big thing I would, and I didn't even think of it until just now, but it's like it's instilling, man. Whatever you do on Sundays is whatever. Well, your life, He really meets you, and your life really changes when you can figure out how to do this in your car, or in the morning, or at home every day. Because it's not the worship, it's actually Him. It's His presence.
Yeah.
And so, and I guarantee you, if you have a lifestyle of worship at your home in your car all the time, what they do on Sunday is going to bother you a lot less.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're going to be able to endure.
Yeah.
If for whatever reason you don't have the choice to go to another place because you're a kid or whatever, but you're going to see it differently.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's putting a lot of pressure on a Sunday morning for sure. If you're expecting that to be, that's good.
Or any day.
You changed my mind.
Any
one
day.
Yeah.
Any one day.
Once again, you changed my mind. Good job.
So I want to talk about Dallas a little bit, man. Like, what's the transition look like for you and Nacy and the kids? Because you were here for quite a while. I mean, New Mexico, Dodge City.
We lived here for 8 years.
That's crazy, man. Dairy farmer, right? Man,
I remember when you first moved, you got this a lot. We've talked about this, but okay, Nacy's going to be the children's pastor. So what are you going to do?
Yeah, when we first moved to Dallas,
How was that? How was that transition initially for you? Going from being like provider and having a real job to going and being stay-at-home daddy.
Glory to glory,
for the
bro.
most part, right? I mean, for a little while, you were kind of a different role for sure, or not?
Yeah, Nacy and I always had a great. We've always both been providers, so she's one of the hardest workers I know.
Yeah,
and so she's always in our early in our marriage. She's always worked. We've always both worked, and so And it was only in the last couple years where she finally got to stay home with the kids and homeschool. But so we moved down to Dallas, and we moved down there, and like she's the one that has the title, she's the one that has the job. But I don't, I can't say that it actually bothered me that much.
I didn't think it did.
Other than the question of like, well, what are you?
Yeah.
Other than having to answer like that question, is coming. Oh, that's great for her, but what are you gonna do? And it very much comes with good intention. They're all good intentions, but it very much is implied that like, okay, are you on job hunting websites? Are you just gonna sit around? Like, what are you doing? And so, but I don't know. Some people could say that could be humbling. I never felt that. I don't know. It's been great. It was both of us. It was a team effort when we got there. And so she took over this kids program that had gone through some transition. They had their kids pastor passed away and from cancer. And so it was just kind of a program in kind of disarray because of all that. And it's totally understandable. And so it needed a lot of attention. And it was both of us. And I was in these classes with her and trying to wrangle these kids. And I realized that this wasn't my calling, and it was great to know that. But yeah, that's
my wife reminded me, and I think she was just kind of remembered it too, but she gave you a word. Do you remember that word a while back?
If you tell me a little gist of it, then
she saw some letters over your head, and it was skid.
Oh yeah.
And then they shuffled around to say kids over your head.
Remember that.
She actually just kind of remembered that story, and
I didn't even think of that.
And so when she realized that Nacy was writing this book and you guys were going there for children's ministry, that was exciting for her. That was like confirmation for her. So it was kind of a cool thing.
I wonder what else she said in that. That'd be so neat too. She probably knows.
Yeah. I just remember because she's a very visual seer when it comes to like, she'll see pictures or letters over people's heads or whatever. And she said she saw the word skid over your head. And then as she's watching it, the letters rearrange to spell kids. Yeah. And I think that's really all she got and was expecting you to pray it out. And you didn't, apparently. Just kidding. I'm kidding.
No,
I'm kidding.
I'm bad at that.
No, I'm kidding. But she was excited, because that was like a step of faith for her to find you and say, hey, I just saw some letters rearranged over your head.
And now it's a huge confirmation.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah. So the Lord's really been really faithful about giving Nacy vision for that program, and I'm just sort of helping. Like I'm pretty good at like seeing like the holes of systems and seeing okay, well, if you're gonna do that, then we have to fix this, and so we built an easy way for volunteers to sign up. There's policies, there's procedures, there's protocols, and
that's kind of what you did for the dairy too, right?
Yeah, it really showed me that I've been being the Lord prepares you for. Yeah. You don't even think you're being prepared for what you're doing, but you don't realize it until later. But it's the things I did at the dairy, exact same things, totally apply to what we're doing now in those kind of ways. So, really neat.
And I love the fact that he prepares your heart, because this Dallas trip, like I think a lot of people I say trip, I don't know. I think a lot of people were like, oh, that was quick. But I think it was, I don't know, I just watched that transition for you and Nacy, and I'm like, man, that seems so simple to them. They were just like, hey, God's calling us here, we're gone.
It was so fast. And
take your arm off the table. Thank you. It's shaking stuff.
It was so fast. And to be honest, it really was fast. It was, we got the word, a prayer. Our good friend Eniola prayed over us in January. And it unlocked something and confirmed something in both Nacy and I's hearts that I sort of knew was deep down, but I didn't know she had it deep down. And we looked at each other and said, we think we're supposed to move. And with not only within...
This was January of 17.
17.
Yeah.
And by July, we left our house. We packed up. Last time we were in Kansas was we left our house on July 17th.
A year ago, man.
So we just had our year anniversary of leaving. And, but in 7 months, we went from, we thought we were going to be in the family business forever. And it was just like kind of a given when you're in that kind of business, especially agriculture that's passed down and generational. it's you don't really think you're going to be leaving.
Right.
And so it just shows you that God had been changing our desires.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all talk. I didn't listen to it yet, but I saw that you talked about desires.
Yeah.
And it's one of my favorite topics because he's so for us. He's so for us, and he knows what's actually going to give us our best life and give us our most fulfilling life, that he actually puts the desires in our hearts to begin with, and that he then fulfills.
Yeah.
Like it's like the deck is so stacked in our favor. You know what I mean?
That's good.
Yeah, that's good.
And so he had been changing our desires, and so it wasn't like it was like an easy decision, and even though it's a big one, but it was just grace, and the way we found the house was his grace, and we had our baby down there. So instead of waiting, like, the book would say, like, okay, we'll go as soon as we have this baby because she's pregnant. But like we thought, like, why wait? Like, you know what I mean? Like, why wait? So, but there has been a lot of great reasons not to go.
Yeah.
Financial reasons, future reasons, like baby reasons, size of your house reasons.
Get in. Do you mind? Because I want to like hit on the faith topic of that, because you and I kind of had some discussion before you left about the faith aspect of it. You mind sharing a little bit about the financial side, what that looked like? Like why was that a sacrifice or a change for you? For people who don't know, I mean,
well, just from a real practical standpoint, we worked for the family business on the farm, and so we had a lot of the expenses that normal adults would have in regular jobs, like a mortgage and electrical bills and car payments and utilities, all that stuff. We didn't have to pay because it was all part of the business. It's a family business, family ag business, and so like those are all things that it'd be easy. So
you'd never had a mortgage payment before. Yeah,
never had a mortgage payment before, and so like those are all things that like you write down your pros and cons on this. If you did that, you're like, whoa, this in the world's view. If you didn't have the desire, it looks nuts, but
the desire that was given to you.
Yeah, the desire that was given to me anyway for my best life, like for me, tailored for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, that side. But I was thinking about that with the Lord the other day, and we just think we know what the future is going to look like financially, and so it's easy to go, man, if you guys would have stayed, things would have been like this. Would have been like a secure, clear path. A plus B plus C equals D. It's all set up. Why would you? But really, you don't know that. You know what I mean? You don't know from 1 week to 1 year to the next. You don't know, and I'm not saying like things would have gone south, but it's putting a lot of faith in something that He hasn't really told you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So did the Lord actually promise me that if you stay here, I'm gonna I can't say that He specifically told me that. So I'm putting faith in actually what the world says is gonna look like. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
so
we talked a little bit about that last week, about it takes absolutely zero faith to do what I've always done. In that aspect, like to do, again, let me preface this with don't crucify me. Like I'm not talking about changing doctrine or theology, but like to do the same thing that I have always done, that takes no faith. And that, to me, I mean, even as a ministry perspective, that's can be scary, I guess. But you didn't take a blind faith jump. You just heard a word, and you and your wife that resonated with both of your hearts, and we're like, we got to do this.
Yeah,
that's cool.
It's a funny thing because it's almost like we talk about faith like it's a Hail Mary sort of way, but I think what I've seen is like the faith that He gives. So it's not this blind hope, but it's the faith that He authors. He's the author and perfecter of our
That's good.
faith, right? So if He authors the faith, then I'm believing in what He said.
Yeah. You're believing in the author.
In the author of who wrote it, and it's not like, and so, that's kind of where we're at.
We talked about last week too, and I really got this perspective from you on your way out, the idea of wisdom versus faith. I don't know if you remember that conversation we had about how Peter stepping out of the boat, it would have been okay for those guys to say, hey, that isn't a wise move, but he was taking a step of faith, and that trumped manly wisdom.
Yeah.
On your way out, it would have made a lot of sense for you to keep your van.
Oh, yeah.
Listen, I'm
Totally.
gonna go there because you need.
Oh, I've thought about it.
Yeah, I'm sure you have. I'm sure there's all kinds of regret there.
No.
But you have a van. I'm gonna throw a number like $20,000 vehicle that sure would have been nice for you to probably sell and have that money for yourself on your way out because you were leaving security in that.
Yeah.
But Scott Tilley gets a phone call one day. What happened, Scott?
Dude, this is woo. So, you want the full testimony or like the cut version?
I cut it. I don't care. Whatever.
And so
I just know my point of view from it. Not
saying
yours.
that I needed to meet a couple people in Dodge, and I show up, and there's this van just waiting there, and Josh has the title in his hand. He's like, "Hey, we want to give you this van." And I'm like, "What?" And here's the cool story that a lot of people may not know. That's huge. We were getting ready to go to Telluride, and we were either gonna have to rent a van or borrow a van, and so I'm just praying like, hey God, we need a van. Like they say be specific, but I wasn't specific at all. I was like, we need a van to get to Telluride. And the week before we leave is when he hands over the keys and the title to this. And this isn't just some van.
And this wasn't stuff that you spoke to people. Like he didn't know you needed a van.
No,
Yeah.
I didn't tell anybody. He actually said.
How'd you know,
me,
Josh? How'd you find out?
Yeah, I think you told me.
I'm just kidding.
He actually said. Josh actually said a couple times, maybe while he was handing me, I can't remember, but he goes, man, the Lord actually told me to do this once before and I didn't listen, but here it is. And
oh yeah,
and so he handed me all that stuff, and I'm looking at this van going, this is surreal. This is not real. Yeah. And it's got limo lights, a DVD player, a TV. I mean, a game system hookup, like leather seats. This isn't just
it's a fun van.
This isn't just a man. This is a man van. So it was really a blessing for me and my family to be able to just to reap the benefits of he and Nacy's obedience to the Father, man.
And you were pretty much able to turn that into two vehicles, right?
Yeah.
So you sold that.
Yeah.
Bought two vehicles that you guys desperatally needed. I know you were hurting for a while.
Praise God, really?
Yeah, dude, it was
awesome.
cool. Yeah.
Good. And I'm glad you mentioned Nacy too, because it's just I was thinking like, I can get stirred up to give away stuff or money or whatever from time to time. But I was just to have a partner and a wife. It's funny because I told her, I was like, I think we had this van. It's a travel van, and we used it. It was stayed in our barn, but when we go on trips, we use it. But I was like, I don't even remember when we gave that to you. Anyway,
it was in July, about a year ago.
Anyway, I told her, I was like, I think we're supposed to give the van away, and she goes, to who? And I told her, and she
not
goes,
the Eubankses, I hope.
Well, she goes, and it's so funny because she goes, to who? And I said, I think the Tilleys. And she said something like, okay, then I know that's from the Lord.
That's awesome.
Because I think she was, because you know what? We can do awesome things that are like soul, that are like, really originate from our soul, or like, you want to bless your friend or your buddy, but like I specifically heard. And so she heard that I wasn't just giving it to my best friend or whatever. Yeah. And for her, that goes, I think she realized that. She's like, okay, that.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And it's so funny. So I just want to honor her. Like,
it's a partnership, man.
And you know what? And it's both of our money. And so like she's pregnant, 6 months pregnant. We know we're having a C-section because we have all C-sections so far. So we have to have another one. We know those cost $5,000 or $6,000, like even with the thing. And so for her to
mortgage.
Oh, we're gonna have all these expenses that we've never had. We're about to move to Dallas. We're about to have we have to live like all this stuff, and like this van could have done that. And so for her to agree to that too was amazing. And so I was just like, and if you're married, it's like this, if you guys can be unified, and you just don't, I haven't always done this, but you just don't want to be it just doubles or more than doubles everything. I don't
Yeah.
know.
No, that's good. And I'm telling you, that story is so inspirational to me because it just did not, in the natural,
Makes sense.
make any sense. I mean, but I mean, even there's good meaning people, me included, that are just thinking about retirement, thinking about,
Yeah.
stacking up the bank, even if it's savings and not spending or whatever, and providing. We have this twisted view, I think, sometimes about the provider,
Yeah.
the man being the provider.
Yeah.
The Bible's pretty clear that he's the provider,
So
and it's
good.
like, it's one of those things that I don't know if you understand how much of an impact that had on the people that you left behind.
Ugh.
That was
Praise
a big,
God.
it's like
Yeah.
kind of like on the way out, I'm going to do this and bless everybody.
Ugh.
Yeah.
It was
I'm
good,
getting
man.
Chills. Yeah. And it was, I mean, just, it was so easy. I could have talked myself out of that. So easy. In fact, but I feel like in my life, I know something's for the Lord. It's like, I can't let it, he doesn't let it go. Like, or I could stuff it and I could say no, but like there's something deep inside of that. Like I couldn't sleep right. I'm like, no, I know I need to do this. And, that was right at the time we were reading The Blessed Life. If you haven't read The Blessed Life by Robert Morris, be careful. Be careful. It'll have you doing some crazy stuff.
Doing things that don't make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's good. And can I be real vulnerable right now?
Hold on, I'll hit stop. Hold on.
No.
Just kidding.
I'll be I'll just be real honest, just because just so everyone knows that, just because I'm in ministry kind of officially now as a pastor, but man, I've really withheld from the Lord on trusting him with my finances lately. And it's not been, I'm not talking about like sin and not tithing, but I've not been trusting him like with our finances as I want to get to. And so this is just an awesome reminder to me about like, you remember, like, it's almost like you're reminded of a relationship you just once had with someone. You're just like, oh man, Lord, just like renew that love, renew that relationship.
Bring
in
you
me.
back to your first love.
Yeah. And just kind of renew that trust in you. Where the same way we had this just almost this childlike faith and in being willing to give away something like a van that didn't look like on the surface it made any sense, which in the world it doesn't. But I'm like, man, I thank you for that reminder, because you are the provider. And I don't think he sits there and he's like, well, man, but he's like, no, it's for your own good to trust me with your finances. So
it's a kingdom seed, man.
So yeah, I just want to bless people with that. And there's grace, but it's been good for me to remind you of that. So thank you.
That's cool.
That's good.
Yeah, because it's so easy. You have all this, and then you get down there and you start looking, and you're just like, all right, and then you just start holding on. You start holding on to that money instead of sowing that.
And
money.
it's not a cheaper place to live down there for
goodness.
sure. Yeah, you're not going to Dodge City Law games anymore.
It's not Mozambique, Africa. No, let me tell you what. No, and so that's and and so it's just all that. It's just.
Do you see the Lord honoring that right now, as far as in your finances? Because that was a big move that I think most people want to hear. Hey, that's cool that you gave it away, but what did the Lord do in return? Kind of thing. I'm not saying like your bank account grow, but like in your heart, do you feel like there was?
It's so funny, and I feel like we should, if we're gonna do things like we should be looking to see what grew out of it.
Yeah.
I don't always think that way, and it's almost like, how do you attribute what to what? But this lady wrote Nacy and I a $1,200 check out of the blue the other day.
Yeah, man.
There's actually another amazing thing came out of the blue that was even more than that, and I don't really want to talk about that because
that's fine.
I don't. But so he, like, God is so good. He's faithful anyway, right?
Yeah.
And saying like he is.
He doesn't have to prove it. That's what you're
No,
saying.
he's faithful anyway. He's faithful anyway. I think he's saying like, oh, you have no idea how much more, because it's the principle, it's the system it's his system of sowing and reaping. And he's like, look, I'm going to take care of you no matter what. You're going to get bread, but I've given you seed to sow.
Yeah.
And that can grow. You're actually hurting yourself.
That's good.
You know, so that's what I actually believe about the Lord, but my actions lately have not been saying that. So do I really? I don't know. But that's what in my head,
Mm-hmm.
I know that.
Mm-hmm.
Like I believe that in my head.
Yeah.
And something happens when I reach out in the pocket and I'm like, I've been in fear lately, honestly. And so I just need to repent of that. And to be fair to Nacy, she's like, have you been giving like we should? I'm like, no. And I get all frustrated and like, I'll get it,
Yeah.
And, but she's been praying, and the way she gets me to do things is through prayer, and it always works. And I'll find myself cleaning out the garage, and I'll look at her. I'm like, you've been praying for me to do this, haven't you? She's like, yeah. She's just laughs and stuff like that. And so it's just an area that he's proven himself. And he, in these kind of times, he's actually proven himself to be a faithful provider because he's a good dad. Yeah. So anyway, that's that. That's the financial. Did not know I was going to open up about that, but that's good.
Yeah.
Love
Confession.
Love it, man.
Confession is telling the truth. I heard the guy say, and you need to. Y'all been listening to Jamie Winship at all? Have you ever heard of him?
I've heard of him.
Man,
sure.
I've really
I don't
just
listen
heard
to him
snippets before, and I got turned on to him.
He's good.
Recently, and he said God only speaks in truth. Right?
Well, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's his language.
So outside of that,
He's like, so do not bother speaking to God if it's not true.
wow.
Mm.
And it doesn't mean you have to know everything. It just means you have to be honest with him.
Yeah.
If you're not honest with the Lord, he can't. He says it's like he almost can't do anything with it.
Yeah. Wow.
But as soon as you're honest with him, God, I have not been trusting you with my finances. I've been scared. I've been withholding, not from you because you need it, but I've been withholding because I've been fear-based. And I've been gripping into thinking that me holding on to it is better than what you can do with it. And he's like, God can work with that.
That's selfishness too, right?
Yeah. And God,
Holding on to
but he
yourself.
said like that,
Yeah.
God hears that.
Yeah.
And not hears that to say, okay, finally you confess, say you're sorry. He doesn't need your apology. He wants to go. And he says, he said, that's confession, is telling the truth to God. What repentance is listening to God tell the truth about who he is to you,
Yeah.
and then it changes what you do.
Yeah.
That's repentance.
That's good.
Mm.
Whoa.
Wow, that's big.
That's basically God showing how good he is.
I'm going to,
That leads you, because it's his goodness that leads us to repentance.
Man, and so
That's
he's
awesome.
Confession is being honest with the Lord. Repentance is him being honest with you about who he is, and then because of that revelation, you change what you do.
That's good.
Woo!
That's really good.
Now, just knocking my socks off yesterday on the way here. I was just listening to it over and over. So
That's amazing.
glad I got to weave that in.
Yeah.
Jamie
man.
Winship, you need to
Jamie
check him
Winship.
out.
Lee Jantz is really into him, yeah?
He's super. He's the one that turned me
Yeah.
on to him.
Yeah.
He did it. He tried to a couple years ago or a year ago.
It was booked at one time, I think.
Yeah, and but this guy's got an identity message that is so unique.
Yeah.
Anyway,
That's good.
worth just a plug for him.
So speaking of identity, I would be kind of silly for not talking about this. You're such like an intriguing guy. And when I very first really had the vision and the passion for doing this podcast, it was guys like you that I wanted to have on, just because I feel like I've probably known you longer than anybody else in this circle here in Dodge.
Totally.
But there's so much about you that I don't know. I feel like, like not that you've withheld it, but I just feel like, I just feel like there's so much intriguing stuff about you. And even if it's stuff that I know, I don't know. But you're a guy that, and I've told you this, and I've told the world this on this podcast, but you really changed my life. Going from a church-going guy in ministry my whole life to really understanding the kingdom in a way that I never did before. And that was through Dan Mohler's messages of identity and stuff. How do you get that from other people? Because I get the sense, and I shared this with you too, that I think like you are just such a major part of my testimony. Like I can't give my testimony without talking about Josh Littlejohn. And I really think there's so many people like that. Like Scott Tilley, probably just from that little act of kindness, that's a major story that he would have to share. And I feel like you do that Maybe you're doing that on purpose. Maybe you just want to be in everybody's testimonies. But I think you're a guy that just touches so many people that you don't even probably realize.
I appreciate that.
Do you sense that though in yourself? I mean, do you feel like you have that kind of impact on people?
Sometimes I do, yeah. But it's even blessed me right now because I don't consider myself an evangelist at all. In fact, it's probably like if you take those tests. That's my lowest. Like the fact, and it's probably because I have a poor view and a wrong view of evangelism. But like, man, I'm not the guy to necessarily come up to you and start talking to you about Jesus. That's never been who I am. But just as you're talking, I wonder if that just looks different for me. I wonder if that just the way I sort of share faith or impart faith, or at least stir up maybe people to think or see differently, is kind of like, because I'm not trying.
Yeah.
Like so I'm not trying, but that's awesome because like if I tried, it wouldn't, like, I'd get anxiety.
There wouldn't have been that impact. I don't think if you were trying.
Anytime I've tried, it's just not been myself. So, I think so. I had an amazing, encouraging word from this girl named Sarah at church at Upper Room, like quite a while back. But I can't remember. I was either sharing in front of the volunteers for the kids, or it might have been when I preached that one time. I can't remember, but something I said, she came up to me and she said, "I want to give you a word." And I said, "What?" And she's like crying. She's like, "There's just something about you. You have the power to. You have something about you. Have the power to make the power to change the way people think."
Yes.
And it was probably like the best
word
I've ever gotten, because that's actually the metanoia is actually like the
change the way you think.
The literal definition of repentance is is change the way people think. But she said and I probably that stirred me up so much, and actually I don't think that's what I try to do, but that's the fruit I've seen in my relationships and different things.
Well, I think we do get the word evangelism twisted sometimes, because, and I could be way wrong here, and feel free to email us at thekingdombringers@gmail.com.
I'll set you straight.
The idea of evangelism, why do we always just attribute that to the lost, quote unquote?
Yeah.
Because really, to me, evangelism is like preaching the gospel, right? To go out and to preach the gospel. And it says to every living creature, to everywhere. I think, and for me, I think I was a guy in the church. I was a saved Christian who needed to be evangelized to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I do feel like you're probably correct in thinking, and I'm not calling you an evangelist, but you probably are correct in thinking that you've had that twisted, because I know I did for a long time. I didn't consider myself an evangelist because I don't have a real passion to go street ministry. That's what we always think of.
Peter Lewis has an amazing, if you go to Upper Room's podcast and listen to a couple of weeks ago, Peter Lewis's talks on evangelism.
He's my favorite Upper Room guy, dude.
Yeah.
He's so good.
He's Michael Miller's favorite Upper Room preacher, and that's his church.
He's so good. He's good.
Yeah.
He's good.
It's awesome. I'm just taking in the wisdom, man. Anytime Littlejohn,
you're an evangelist. You got something to say, man. What the heck?
I will say, it's funny. It reminded me of something like when Scott Tilley and I first met. It was like in Yarnell's shop upstairs, and we were having these like men's group type things. Or it's something. You said something like, you told me one day, you're like, when I first met you, like, I wondered if you were even a Christian, like, because not because of like we didn't talk about the Lord or the Bible, because like I always tend to say things that I don't know. You know what I'm talking about? I don't know. So
that was a growth factor for me, first of all, because it was the first I heard of this kingdom message, and when I heard Josh Littlejohn talk, it was so, I don't want to say it was different than what I heard, but it actually challenged my heart to do some turning. Yeah. To do some repenting things the way I thought and the way I limited God. So when you talked, it was like, I don't know what this dude has, but I need it. Like, I need to know where he's coming from.
Scotty would call me on Saturdays sometimes and ask, who's preaching? And I would say Littlejohn, and it was always a pause, almost like a oh, is my head ready? Because you mentioned that, like, I'm gonna have to think tonight. You know? Yeah. That's good though. That's awesome.
It's super good because it changed who I was for sure. Like,
I'm gonna have to think. And there's that word back.
Yeah.
That it's something about it's that thinking, and I feel like I've always been able to, for whatever reason, I've always been able to impact thinking.
Yeah.
And
that's affirmation.
Yeah.
Like on what God has called you to, because man, you still do that. I listened to your message a couple months ago at Upper Room, and matter of fact, we were getting ready to start service, and I had him live, like on our. I'm like, maybe we'll just sit here and listen to Littlejohn today. He's probably got something way better than I got for you. So
yeah,
it really does challenge to think. There's a challenge of thought when we listen to you, because, dude, you can take this how you want, but you really know the heart of the Father, man. You really do. And that stirs people up. I don't care if he preached for the first time. I remember listening to you at the G, and your pace, man, you could tell. you want to challenge people to think because you're a thinker.
Yeah.
God has placed that desire, I believe, in your heart to be a thinker. And that changes perspective on everybody that listens. I know it changed mine.
Yeah,
I've learned so much from you, dude.
Thank you.
So much.
It's such a Christ-like quality, dude. It really is. No, I'm serious. Like, you think about what Jesus did ultimately.
Yeah.
He stepped into that culture and made people think. And that's kind of what led him straight to the cross, was people didn't want to think anymore, you know? And so I feel like that's something for sure that you come in and you shake things up, even if it's shaking up the church or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the heart, me knowing the heart of the Father is probably this, like, the just as much most remarked or thing I get back, feedback from people, is those two things. Something about the way they think different. They think differently, and they just get something about the heart of the Father. I have a passion that people know the goodness of the Lord and His grace and His mercy, and that's like that's part of like a life. I have one thing. I'm like, no, He's better. He's better than we think.
Yeah,
He's better than we think. So just remember that. So.
Man, that's good.
So yeah, no, I appreciate that, guys, and it's all stuff I glean and get from other places, and I take ingredients and I put it together, and he melds it and he works with it. But Darin, like, I know, like, when we met, you know, it wasn't me preaching like a different message, but something that was given to me by Miller, this Dan Muller teachings. But then it was and we listened to it all day long, but then it was in the conversations that we would have. We call each other, did you hear this part? Did you hear this part? And it was in that iron sharpening iron, that rub, and that I feel like we step into deeper revelation when we're just processing those things in community together.
Well, that was the first time probably that I had a relationship with someone within the church, and that sounds ridiculous because I was 33 years old and had been in church my whole life, but
served every Sunday.
And so I meet this guy. He's different. He's weird. I was just shocked that he came to this men's night thing that I invited some dudes to, and he walks in and he doesn't fit in just because he's just different. We're all, I mean, you guys can, if you guys know Josh, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But him, you know, it was for the Final Four, I believe. Wichita State was in the Final Four for the first time or whatever. And we were not for the first time, but we were sitting in chairs just talking while everybody else was watching the game. and you're sharing with me this Dan Muller stuff that's just rock. Like, it's almost like my heart knew what I needed and what I've been craving my whole life, but my head didn't.
Right.
And so you woke up that thinking part that matched up with my heart. And that was the ingredient I needed. But I remember that next Sunday, you walked up to me. I didn't know if we were going to have a relationship at that point or not, or if it was like an angel in the living room. But he walks up and he hands me this MP3 player. Oh yeah. I had never had an MP3 player in my life.
Oh, I actually gave you the player.
He hands me this red MP3 player.
He's like, dude, you need this so bad.
Remember those? Everyone had one.
Yeah, I still have it up there actually. And I'm like, okay, I'll burn these off. And he's like, no, you just keep it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, cool. And I bring it home, and it's that Harvest Chapel School of Kingdom Living.
Amen.
Which you may be excited to know that I meet with a small group in my house on Sundays, and we're going through that right now.
The same thing.
We're on day 23.
Wow.
It's the third time that I've done this.
Wow.
But we're leading other people into this, so I get to experience what you experienced in other people's hearts and minds. It's
Praise
so
God.
cool.
That's
But
awesome.
that's what introduced me to that, and we decided to listen to it together, and we started with day one, and we would listen to this 2.5 hour session with Dan Moeller, and we'd talk on the phone for another hour or two.
Yeah.
And you're right, that's where the growth came from, and I think that's what community does.
Yeah.
That's what community is all about. So really, you probably taught me more about community, and I don't know if you had necessarily a community at that time either.
No. In fact, you walked up at church and you gave me a flyer for this men's night. And, if that would have happened 2 months or 3 months, I can't remember the exact time, but just say 3 months before, I wouldn't have came.
Right.
Because God hadn't yet I hadn't gone down to Dallas. He hadn't encountered me in a way down there to where I was like, wow, this is what people that love the Lord could look like. They live this out. They talk about God every day. They talk about him, whatever we're doing. They pray like their prayers work.
Wow.
Like these are young people. They're like 23. They're not weird. Right?
Yeah.
So they're they're not weird. They're musicians. They're passionate about the Lord, but they're gonna, like, if you have anxiety about your job, they're like, let's pray about that. And they actually believe. And I just had never met people like that before. And we were driving back to Kansas, and I was like, I don't know what to do because I don't know anyone like that up here at all. And I just was praying. I prayed all the time. Lord, cross my path with people that want more, that are hungry for more. That was the prayer. All the time. I would pray that all the time. Give me people that just want more. Like, because I didn't know what I needed. I just knew I wanted more, and I was hungry. Yeah. And so, like, through that time, that's when Michael sent me that USB drive full of all those Dan Moeller teachings, and praise God for Dan Moeller and that message. And it just opened my eyes to a whole new world. Still didn't have community though. And then I'm at church one Sunday, and you sent me a flyer, and I looked to Nancy and I said, I think I'm going to go to this. And she goes, really? She was actually really surprised that I was like, I'm going to go to this. And
I just remember seeing you in church. Like, we'd never, and you'd been there for a while.
We were back row, and this is what I'm going to talk about tonight. Part of what I'm going to talk about tonight. They wanted me to give my testimony, which to me always means like, we heard you were on drugs.
Tell us your dirt.
What happened to you?
And
when was the change?
Good. It's good.
I
get that. Those are always, great stories, but that's just one part. Like, I got set free from drugs, and praise God, and have never had a desire to do those again. And so, but just as bigger, just a part of the journey is when, what we were just saying, we were back row. Got set on fire for the Lord. Like, okay, got off of drugs, went to rehab for a year, went to treatment for a year, and then really got involved in church. Celebrate Recovery Ministry.
Yeah.
Everything the church offered. We were there every boom, and truly was in love with the church. We moved. That was in New Mexico. It was a really big, like, non-denominational, kind of a mega church type thing. Really cool, really awesome faith Christian family church. Still love them. Moved to Kansas. And when you're in love with church, you're like, okay, we need to find a good church that's like this was, and it really wasn't anything the same. It was a way more rural area, and it just wasn't anything the same. We end up at the church here in Dodge where I met you at, and just over time with us having kids and not finding a church that was the same, we found ourselves, it's that whatever that song is, the slow fade.
Yeah.
Which I hate that song, but it's a great song. But it's probably I hate it because it was convicting in my life.
Right. Yeah.
It's not encouraging.
Yeah.
I don't know. You know what I'm talking about? It's like not.
I'm willing to say it's not a great song, but go ahead.
Wait, what song is it?
It's like you don't lose. No one loses. No one.
Yeah.
Something
it doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah, you don't crumble in a day. It's a slow fade, and just over time, you don't mean to do it, but over time,
correct. Yeah,
over time with kids and us not being plugged into a church, we had become back row. Man, we get there late. I hated going. We get there late. We leave early. I don't really want to connect with anyone. I don't really want to go to any of the events. And it's, guess what? It's not the church's fault.
Yeah, that's good.
And this is some revelation that came to me last night. I had got out of rehab and got on fire for the church and fell in love with the things I was doing. Not just I was doing, but the things that we were involved in at the church. And they were good things. But the problem is that's not sustainable because the bride was never intended to fall in love with itself.
Whoa.
And so I was in love with the church.
Yeah.
That's not our job.
That's good, man.
That's the groom's job. And I wasn't in love with Jesus. I was in love with the church.
That just made me think.
Yeah, I'm thinking now, too.
So the bride falls in love with itself, which is still going on.
I say that all the time, bro. I love the church.
And I do.
We're called to love the church.
I do, but
yeah, I know what you mean.
The church was my source.
Yes.
Yeah. And I had loved the things we were doing at the church. And part of the reason I'm going to talk about the drug history, and I'm going to talk getting to see from thank you, Jesus, from the life of darkness. And I mean, I was either going to be dead or in prison if somebody hadn't intervened in my life. But part of what I'm going to talk about tonight too is, because it's a revival, and
yeah.
Anyway, but part of it is that you need to, and no one can answer this for you. You have to ask this yourself. If you stop being so involved in your church, what does your life look like?
That's deep.
If you stop being so involved in your church, what does your life look like? Instead of the other way around.
Yeah. I remember you saying that specifically too. One time was like, if you stopped going to church,
and I can tell you,
and
it happened to me. Yeah. Like, it was, Nacy and I didn't have there was no fruit in our life. There was no fruit of the Spirit in our life. We didn't, like, we had turned into sort of roommates. We were bickering. It was like, I'm going to do a guy's weekend. She's like, well, I'm going to go shopping on the girls' weekend. And it was like, even Stevens, well, you bought this. I'm going to buy this. Really, like, the only time we were nice to each other is when we went out to dinner with another couple. You know that, and it's just like you want to keep going out to dinner with other people because that's when
there's some civility.
So you at least treat each other decently. Yeah. And then on the way there though, it's fighting. On the way there back, it's fighting. There's our lives were dead in church, but I'm not blaming. I think I probably used to blame the church, but it wasn't the church.
Yeah,
no. I think our instinct, especially if you're in the church, doing ministry in the church, your instinct is, what do we need to do? What programs do we need for a guy like Josh Littlejohn? Yeah. And you're right. Like, Wednesdays are open. Sunday mornings are,
what works for me? That's the mentality.
Mm-hmm.
What works for me? And I don't think it was ever designed that way. One of the things I always like to say, like, I can get something from any service. Like, any service I go into, I can get something if I choose to believe that I'm expectant walking in there. But what can I do for this place? What gift has God granted me or grafted into my kingdom DNA to allow me to change the atmosphere in this room? And that's something I really, really, really stuck with me on one of your testimonies about Upper Room, is when you came back. I will never forget this. And the testimony is the same, but if I word it wrong, you can correct me. You said you were watching them worship, and this I can remember you pacing at the floor on the G telling this testimony. You said, I was watching them worship, and you heard the Lord tell you in your spirit, you're watching them, but they're watching me. And that changed, dude, that changed so much for me, just approaching worship in that way. Like, dude, it's not about how eloquently I can strum or how good I am in the keys or what I can sing. It's about me being on my face, like in the spirit of God. Like, bam! I don't care what it looks like. I don't care how silly it looks. Don't look at them. Look at me. True. And that changed a lot for me.
That was life changing for me too.
Hey guys, that's it for now. Thank you so much for tuning in. We're gonna pick up right where we left off on this one for next week. So you're gonna have to hang on. I want to remind you guys to share this episode. It's so good. We got to sit down for multiple hours with Josh, and we just had fantastic conversation. Watching this guy, his maturity level is like off the chain right now. He's just grown up so much in the spirit, and it's been fun. It's been fun to watch him grow, and we hope you guys enjoyed this conversation, but we continue this, like I said, right where we left off next week. So again, rate, review, subscribe, and share. Thank you guys. Be blessed.